with this project, when you guys first came on, were there any specific challenges or sequences that kind of stood out, like, holy crap, how are we going to pull this off?
Well, I think just the whole idea of having a city that's underwater and having a lot of footage, a lot of archival footage that showed us the context of everything with multiple people and debris everywhere. That was probably the biggest challenge, just the overall scope of everything. And then we started to break it down into all the different sequences and shots and so forth. Talking about Google Earth, we use Google Earth quite significantly in terms of location scouting. We were all in Toronto, and of course, we had to go down to New Orleans to be very specific and find certain locations, and also find certain houses and things that we use for assets. So we used the time machine feature. And one thing that's was very convenient about this, and I'm sure it was very purposeful, was that when you go down to locations in New Orleans, you could see a few days before the levees broke or levees breached, and then the day after. And so we were able to go to locations and very strategically look at what it was like before and what it was like after, and use that as a template for our work.
That's cool. Like, how were you typically using Google Earth? Were you able to extract a lot of stuff that you could take in other packages to kind of flesh out more, or?
Yeah, at the time, the API wasn't available, so the tile set wasn't available. So we ended up doing that hack where you could grab the GPU buffer, the G buffer, and basically pulling it in. And the thing is, it was super useful just for measurements and all those types of things. And it's, it's an amazing asset now that it's available to everybody.
I was talking to someone the other day about this too, that like, at least the tools I had looked up a few years ago, the only thing available was like I think it's called DX Ripper for Max 2011 or something. So it was like, it's a lot of desperate stuff to go back there. But yeah, being able to intervene between the graphics card and Google Earth was a surefire way to pull stuff.
Yeah, we ended up laundering everything through Blender, kind of. So it's like that was the methodology.
Nice. With you guys looking at specific assets like houses and buildings around New Orleans, were you doing photogrammetry builds of all of them, or how would you typically utilize a lot of the stuff that you're surveying?
Well, the architecture in New Orleans is very unique. You have these shotgun houses and various versions of that. And so we went around, we identified 27 structures, 27 houses, as well as some stores and things like that we used as our base set. And then we hired Crafty Apes, who's in Baton Rouge, to go down and do Lidar as well as photogrammetry with drones. So we had drones circle around the houses, and we're able to extract models on that. Some were dynamic because they had to blow up or had to break apart when the water hit them. But that was the foundation really for what we had to work with. Matt, you were very, very concerned about the number of assets. That was a concern, right?
Well, just in general, when you look at those destructed worlds, everything that was inside the house is now outside the house. Yeah. In the floating in the water, including the oil and all those things. So I think, Eric and I just had really discussions about, like, how do we possibly make this stand up against news footage, which is what we're cutting to next. And that was our biggest concern, was the verisimilitude of the CG in general was just such a high bar, because we just couldn't afford for people to get pulled out of the story, because it's such a serious and reverent story to a certain extent about the chaos and loss of human life.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of curious too, like, which vendors did you work with on this show?
We had three main vendors. So we had El Ranchito in Madrid, and we had Stormborn Studios in Vancouver. They specialize in water and fluid dynamics, and so they did the levee breach, the big shot that took 9 months to produce. Yeah. And then UPP in Prague. And I've done I think 6 shows with UPP. I love those guys. So it's Victor and Vit over there, Victor Mula.